All right, so in this lesson, we're going to design a pad sound, sort of more of a dreamy, slow, evolving kind of background synthesizer. Maybe the kind of thing you'll want to listen to, or maybe you don't want to listen to it, but anyway, the thing you might kind of hear when someone's trying to put you to sleep or put you in a relaxed kind of state of mind. But at the same time, we want it to be really long and interesting. So we'll use Absynth to generate this. My goal here is for me to just be able to play one note and have Absynth do the rest for the next 30 or 40 seconds, or it will just sort of take me into another world and you know, be interesting to listen to. So in order to do this, first we have our single sine wave oscillator. I'm going to propose that we actually start it in FM mode. And we haven't really done any real sound design using frequency modulation yet, although we did talk about it for that for the video a couple of videos back. But this is going to be really useful for us because this will allow us to modulate the FM index, which really generates just a really nice sense of evolving overtones, as you can hear there. And that's when we're transposing it at pitch. Of course, we can put it at any ratio. We could say, 3.02 or so. And get a very different sense of what we're doing. So let's do a few things. Let's actually find a nice ratio we like. I'm thinking let's try 0.5, calculator, 0.5. Let's see what this sounds like. Yeah, and the reason why I'm going with 0.5 is because when it starts, remember we're going to add and subtract the difference in frequencies. So whatever this frequency I'm playing, let's play 220, it's going to add half of that in. So 220, it's going to go up to 330 when I start to dial this in, but as well as introduce 110 below that. So it's actually going to introduce 110 hertz. So it's going to start at 220, and then as I dial this up, it's going to bring in 110 and 330 really nicely. So it'll actually come in lower and brighter at the same time when you use a ratio that's below 1 like this. So I like this a lot. That'll be nice. We don't have to use a sine wave. We can actually use something more brighter. How about a triangle wave? And again, we'll filter this so it sounds a little darker. We'll bring that in. In a second, I'm also not going to use a perfect 0.5 ratio because I want it to fight itself a little bit. I want it to waver and move around a little bit. So you can hear that wow. So again, that's why I'm using a ratio of a little bit off of 0.5. Decide I'm not really wanting a triangle. It's a little bright, but it'll be okay. What else we got? We can use one of the organ ones. Not in love with that either. All right, let's stick with the sine wave. We'll be gentle. So we're just modulating a sine wave by another sine wave. Although actually, let's create a new one. Let's go to our spectrum. And Absynth, for whatever reason, on Cubase 7 and on a Windows 7 machine, keeps doing this little freak out thing, and I just have to reload the window. Let's mix in just a little bit of overtone content. You can barely hear it. But that means when it comes in, it's going to be just all the richer. Okay, that'll be nice. We can do a very similar thing with the B oscillator. So how about on this one, we'll actually pick, how about this bass sound to start with. Let's mute oscillator A while we're designing this, while we're finding it out, while we're bringing our sound. Let's try the fractalize option. And well, probably 3 iterations is going to be plenty. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to actually change the amount and the displacement here. Alright, so I'm actually going to move, I will draw some shapes to modify the displacement amount here. Okay, that'll be cool. I think let's turn oscillator A on, click there. We'll put oscillator A into the filter. And for this type of filter, what we're going to do, let's do a band pass. We haven't really used a band pass filter yet. We've used high pass and low pass to filter out low frequencies and high frequencies respectively. We'll give it a very low Q, which will be a wide bandwidth. And as we turn up the index here, let's get some more frequencies. And again, maybe it might be useful for you guys to look at the, whoops, little E here, to open up this little frequency graph so you can actually see what the frequency content is like. I think we're playing that one. There we go. So you can actually see what this does to the spectrum as I add in these sidebands. And you can also see what the bandpass filter does. It basically allows only a certain region to go through. And I can make this Q very high, which means it's only going to let, you know, a very few select frequencies go through unscathed. Sometimes this is going to distort though if I use a Q that's too high. So again, I just want this to be kind of gentle. So I can morph it like this. Okay, that'll be cool. We could use a ring modulator while we're at it. This might be a little harsh sounding, but let's try it. And I'll put this on ratio mode as well. And maybe we'll just try a 0.251. We can dial it back here. So you know, I can use that ring modulator to sort of bring in a lower overtone. Okay, let's bring on oscillator B again. So we have this. So we can modify that. I think we need a filter on oscillator 2, and it'll just be a low-pass filter. But we could use the feedback control, however, to make it kind of resonant. And you can hear now when I sweep this filter down, it's very apparent that something is sweeping down. All right, we might come back and add the third oscillator later. But for right now, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to put this in stereo mode, and I'll pan each of these just a little bit out to the sides, just to give it more of a three-dimensional, atmospheric kind of sound. Maybe a little more. It's pretty good. I feel like it's a little bit left heavy, but that's all right. I'm a little hesitant to wave shape. We could add wave shaping, but this is going to distort the sound. And often if you want a really big, fat sound that feels a little bit out of control, wave shaping is going to give you that. But for a nice, gentle, evolving sound, wave shaping isn't going to be very helpful. We could put a filter on the whole thing here. And in fact, maybe I will. I'll put a comb filter. And a comb filter is actually going to resonate, it's really just a very short delay. It's going to resonate a whole series of frequencies. So I could actually just have it resonate whatever note I kind of play here. Watch what happens as I turn up the feedback. Gets a little out of command, out of control here. So it has this extra resonance on it. Maybe we dial that back a little bit. And you can also see my clipping light is a little jealous, or not jealous, but overzealous now that we've got this going. I'm going to go to the Perform tab and actually just lower the volume a little bit for this whole synth. Okay, just make sure it won't clip. And then for the effects, this is our effects box, and we can load all these effects. I'm going to try loading the Aetherizer, which will actually just, this is again a granular type of effect. It's just going to chop up our sound into tiny little bits and reassemble them. And we can use it to create all sorts of different effects. I'll give it some feedback. We can change the grain size, the random amount, and have that feedback a little bit. We could also actually have it change the frequency of all the grains too, which is kind of fun. But we won't do that. Maybe a little more feedback though. All right. Actually, let's go back to the Performer. Let's add a few more notes of polyphony. Maybe instead of just playing one note, I'll actually play a really nice chord here. And we'll let the rest of the patch do the talking. Okay, so now we're set up, but we haven't actually automated anything. And there's a few ways we could do this. And let's do it actually a couple different ways. First, let's go to the Envelope tab. And I'm going to add a new envelope for oscillator A. And let's do the mod index. Okay, so this is the brightness. Let me turn off oscillator B. This is going to be the brightness of that first oscillator, essentially. And we'll have it ramp up from 0. How about over, I don't know, over about 5 seconds. And I'll right click and we'll have it ramp down over the next 4 seconds. maybe it ramps down a little more like that. Let's actually go now and up the FM index. Okay, so follow the line, right? Listen very carefully. You can hear that sound sort of opening up and closing along with the overtones that it's generating, especially if you're watching over here. You can see these overtones get brought in. It can be very nice. All right, that's good. Let's add another envelope. How about we add for the filter, we'll add a frequency envelope for this bandpass filter, so we can move the bandpass filter. How about we have it actually start high and then get a little bit lower and then get high again. And this is going to be relative to whatever this frequency is set to. So we can move this up a little bit higher, and it'll start at the top at 3100 hertz. Oops, envelope tab. It'll come all the way down to, right here it says 20 hertz apparently. Maybe we don't want it to go down that low. How about 160 hertz? I think that's kind of nice. You heard it get really dark right there. Maybe it starts at 0.2. Maybe it's really gentle when it comes and fades in. And you can shape the slope of these lines to be however you want it to be. And maybe it moves over. It takes a little bit longer for it to fade in. And it keeps going. So that's nice and warm, right? I think. I hope. Hope I'm not putting anyone to sleep yet. We could also modulate the balance of the ring modulator. So let's add an envelope for that. Select A2 modulator balance. And maybe for this, I actually want it to get a little gruffy, I guess. I don't know what the word is. A little kind of right at the beginning. And then it'll sort of back right off. It's going to be too much, I think. I'll bring this out here, zoom out, drag up on the timeline to zoom out just like Cubase. And it'll get a little bit of its gruff back right at the very end. This will be over here. Make sure my release time is all the way down, so when I let the note go, it doesn't all of a sudden just, turn that ring modulator all the way up again. Maybe do a little more. Here, just a little bit of low frequency kind of oomph. So let's try a chord here. And you might, see, when I let go, did you hear that jump right back up at the end? Let's go find the culprit of that. I can shift click to see all of these different envelopes. So you can see that basically the main amplitude envelope is just going to come on and stay on and then fade out. We're really just automating everything else. I could, I suppose, make a slightly gentler kind of fade in here, so it really doesn't get too much energy right at the beginning. I think I found the culprit, though, for why it jumps up at the end. See what happens to our mod index balance when we let go. This is the release time. This is what's going to happen while the sound is releasing. And what else we got? The filter frequency. Let's move that down too. Whoops. So when we let it go, it gets darker. Hello. Can I not click on the right part? I keep missing that one. There we go. And let's listen what happens to when I let go. There you go. It kind of gets darker at the end rather than spiking upwards. Okay, so that was just for one of these oscillators. Let's use oscillator B. Here's what oscillator B sounds like. I'm starting to think this should be an octave higher too. It's actually going to play a different note. So it'll play up there. And let's go to the envelopes. Let's add some new envelopes. Let's do fractal displacement. And actually, we're not going to use an envelope. Let's use an LFO. So I'm going to go to my LFO tab. I've got my sine wave here. And I'm going to pick a parameter. Look at all the different things we can have this LFO apply to. If you don't know what LFO is, go watch the previous video where we introduced them. And what do we say we're going to do? Oscillator. Oh, some of these are hard to interpret because these are very generic. Main pitch, I think it would be mod index balance or mod morph. Let's try mod morph. And let's give it a value. Just on B. Didn't really do anything. Let's go back and actually look at this. So I want mod iterations displacement. This is the one I really want to. Oh, no, it's not doing anything. Why aren't you doing anything? Oh, we're doing just a tiny bit. That filter I see kills it. Okay. Alright, so really let's go back to that LFO. I think we're looking, let's use the mod amount. Okay, not sure why that isn't doing anything. Oh well. Alright, do it this way. So I have my fractal displacement graph right here. Zoom up, make it a little bigger. Oops, zoom in. We should just hear this get darker and darker. Well, again, I'm really disappointed, and this filter is just killing the whole effect, I think. Nope, there is just no effect. Oh, because it's all the way turned down. Alright, you guys are supposed to tell me these things. There we go. Alright, take a listen now. You can hear it moving that displacement amount around. Here's how Absynth works. Here was my problem. I figured it out. When you use an envelope, it applies this shape to the maximum number you put in this box. So if you put in 0 to the box, the shape isn't going to do anything. You need to have a value here, and then whatever the maximum number you put in here is going to be the maximum number on your graph right here. So let's make this a little gentler, a little slower. So that'll be nice. You hear that little ringing, it kind of comes in and out. I like that a lot. Let's make a new envelope. And oscillator B, we just did displacement. Let's do amount. And basically, I'm just going to fade in the amount so it doesn't start really bright. It'll fade in a little more gently. We can also do that oscillator B amplitude envelope. Have that fade in a little more gently as well. I think that's pretty nice. All right, with our filter frequency, let's get creative. Let's add a new envelope. Filter B. Let's add a frequency as well as the resonance. So we're actually going to modify two parts of this filter. Let's have that filter come in slowly, just sort of like everything else. And then once it reaches the top, oh, that's the resonance. Well, that's fine. Let's have the filter frequency come in just like the resonance. However, once it reaches the top and gets all its resonance, we'll have it come back down. And that's coming in a little too slowly. We have to start a little bit higher because that's at 0 hertz. Let's start around 1,000. You can hear that filter frequency just drop. I think that's a little too much. Really nice, slow, evolving kind of sound. And I'm going to highlight these 2 points. And instead of using the LFO tab over here, I can actually add an LFO right here. And we don't want it to vary quite so much. let's highlight these 3 points and actually just turn, whoops, oh, you're not going to let me do the first one. Very good. And turn that down there. So it's really just going to do this what thing right towards the end. Of course, this is too slow. I'm losing my patience. You hear that variation of that what. And I'll just sustain right there and just keep doing that LFO. I could change the speed of this. I'll slow it down a little bit. And oh, I'm highlighting the wrong point. That's why it's not changing the speed. There we go. Make sure you have the right point highlighted. There we go. That slows it down. All right, let's put it all together. Let's see what we have. And you can watch the sound evolve on the spectrum graph over here if you haven't been doing so already. Oh, I'm feeling like F. Let's try an F major chord. What do you think? You guys ready for bedtime? It's kind of fun to play, actually. I think I'm going to distract myself and just... I might save that and use that in a track. I think that's pretty nice. Okay, so anyway, that was your introduction to creating an ambient pad sound using Absynth. As you can see, basically, in order to create a really rich sound, we're just basically modulating and automating a lot of these little values using the envelope function or occasionally an LFO. And that's really the secret to it, just sort of, taking the time and effort to go through each control and make sure each one just has a little bit of life to it so it doesn't sound dead and dry and synthetic. It makes a really nice, warm sound in the end. I think you guys can agree. Here, I'm going to play you one last chord, and then we'll cut it out. See you next time.